So, the fourth factor that has led to the deterioration of our attention is the collapse of sustained reading. Um, One of my favorite chapters, I would say. So, the author says that many of us have lost our ability to read deeply over long periods. Um, and he has also shared some interesting statistics across different countries where reading books for pleasure is now at its lowest level. And we discussed about the state of flow and how it brings us happiness. And Mihaly says that one of the simplest and most common forms of flow that we experience is by reading a book. So now, because of the culture of being in a constant state of distraction, this habit is gone for a toss. There is an interesting comparison on reading books, the physical copy versus reading via screens. In terms of our behavior, um, when we read a physical book, we are reading in a linear fashion. We are focused on one thing for a sustained period, where the we are focusing on the words, the sentences, the lines, the passages, and so on. Whereas when we read on screens, the chances of us to scan and skim to grab the important aspects is more likely, is higher. So we may not be very much absorbed while we read on a screen. And this is something that I have experienced personally as well. Whenever I have read a book on my Kindle, I feel that I don't remember, or I'm not able to recollect what I have learned as easily as by reading from a physical book. So I usually prefer to read from a physical book most of the times. So, in terms of our understanding and in terms of memory, comprehension as well as memory, we tend to be remembering less of what we learn from screens. This is due to a concept called screen inferiority. Um, we also tend to lose our ability for cognitive patience. So if we are like in a rush to scan and just capture the relevant information, then we don't have that cognitive patience and we tend to lose. And this tends to affect our reading on books as well, the physical books. So he says that our stamina and ability to deal with cognitively challenging texts seem to have come down because we have lost our cognitive patience. So I'm sure when you're reading from a Kindle or any ebook reader or from your browser, you might have felt that you tend to just focus on certain keywords or certain insights that you want to quickly grab. Or sometimes you might also tend to look at various links that might lead to more um, information. So you might have just gone down the uh, uh, the path. You may not be able to focus on that particular topic in hand. That is a drawback when we read via a screen. The author has given his perspectives on the importance of medium. So every medium has a hidden message. Um, a medium in the sense through which we consume content or we consume information. Each medium comes with a certain sort of hidden message, and he is very beautifully explained. And I will just share a quick summary. So, when you look at Twitter as a medium, what is the hidden message that it conveys to us? One is do not focus on any single topic for long, right? When you are on Twitter, you tend to just scroll through various topics at such quick, unprecedented pace, right? And the world can and should be understood in short, simple statements. Um, I used to struggle posting content on Twitter back in the days when it was just a limit of 140 characters. It is very hard to convey what you want to convey in 140 characters, and you tend to strip out all those words which add more value, more context to it, in order to meet that 140 character limit. And it is not just about what we post, it's also about whether people immediately agree with and applaud your short, simple, speedy statements either through likes or through retweets. So this is the sort of message that Twitter as a medium projects to the world. When it comes to Facebook, it is about our life, and the primary objective of our life is to display it to other people. This is again the author's perspective, and what matters most is whether people immediately like our carefully curated highlights. And somebody can be called as your friend if they regularly look at your highlights or you look at their highlights, right? So this term friend is sort of misused, if we could say so. And when it comes to Instagram, the author says that what matters is how you look on the outside. And he keeps repeating that 3, 4 times. And what matters is whether people like how you look on the outside. This is sort of the hidden message that Instagram, communicates, because it's. I think the perspective would have been mainly from the time when it was purely a photo sharing device. Um, Now, when it comes to printed books, what is the hidden message that a book can offer? Uh, that life is complex, and if you really want to understand it, you'll have to set aside a fair amount of time and effort to think deeply about it. And there is value in leaving behind all your other concerns and narrowing down your attention just to that one book, that one page, that one sentence, right? So, this is the sort of hidden message that a book communicates to us. So, what medium we use to consume content, consume information, that projects a lot of hidden messages to us about the world. Um, the author talks about the importance of reading fiction, and this was just another eye opener for me because I don't read a lot of fiction. And the author says that reading fiction can be called as exercising in an empathy gym. um, Reading fiction boosts our ability to empathize with other people. And the more novels you read, the better you're able to understand the characters, the better you get at reading other people's emotions. And here he says that novels, as in you'll have to invest a significant amount of time in order to feel that empathy towards that character. If it is, say, a short story, or if it is somebody who you are observing through a short movie, right, a short film, you will not be able to empathize. Whereas if it is a film, a feature film of 2.5 hours, then you start to empathize with the character. So the longer you invest time in a character, your empathy quotient improves. So right now we are seeing world through short fragments, that doesn't have any impact on our empathy. Only when we expose ourselves to complex stories about the inner lives of other people over a longer period of time, only then it has an impact on empathy. And why is empathy important? He says that empathy makes progress possible, and every time you widen human empathy, you open the universe a little more, which is, an amazing and a very valuable truth, which we seem to have lost because, again, everything sort of, boils down to where we pay attention, isn't it? So, yeah, this chapter on the importance of sustained reading and how the collapse of it has resulted in various other outcomes is a very important chapter, I would say. The fifth one is disruption of mind wandering. Again, this was elaborated in the book Digital Minimalism, where Cal Newport, the author, he talks about the importance of solitude, where You're not distracted by other people's thoughts, or other people's works, but you're just alone with your own thoughts, right? That was a um, very powerful chapter. And the in this book also, the kind of emphasis given to mind wandering is very much in alignment with the purpose of solitude. So he brings out why this mind wandering is important. Whenever we think about attention, we think about spotlight focus, which means we are focusing on one aspect, right? Selectively attending to something in the environment. So that is called as the spotlight focus. But there are other forms of attention as well. One which is called as the mind wandering, where our thoughts flow freely, and we are not focusing on any one topic or any one aspect. So whenever our mind wanders, the certain network of the brain, which is called the default mode, gets activated. And whenever we are in that state where the default mode is activated, we experience a sense of connecting the dots together, where we experience new insights. So many great breakthroughs happen when we are in the state of mind wandering. Um, so he says that the more you let your mind wander, the better you are at having organized personal goals, being creative, and making patient long term decisions. You might have observed this with your own experience as well. So, whenever you go on a long walk without any productivity clutch, so I call this a productivity clutch because these days, going for a walk is considered as like, a physical activity. The mind is idle, so let me make use of the mind by listening to podcasts or audiobooks. Or it could be an entertainment clutch where we use that time to speak to somebody on the phone, or we chat with somebody and walk, right? So walking, uh, just for the sake of walking, is very very rare. We either hold on to a productivity or an entertainment clutch. But if you go for a walk without any of these clutches, you would start to experience this mind wandering happening. Sometimes you would experience mind wandering when you're having a long shower, when you are doing household chores, which you are like, on autopilot mode. So these are the times when you actually experience mind wandering. But our current culture, we have not only lost our ability to spotlight focus on certain topic or certain activity, we have also lost the ability to mind wander. Because the moment we get free, a few minutes of free time, or even a few seconds of free time, we immediately look into our phones or any other gadgets. So there is this constant switching that is happening. We are constantly seeking more and more stimuli, moving from one distraction to next, which prevents mind wandering completely. The one aspect of mind wandering which the author warns about is that sometimes when we let our minds wander, we can easily get into a state of rumination and think about our past, or worry about our future, right? So, um, mind wandering is a gift when we are in situations of low stress, and we feel a sense of safety. At that time, mind wandering can be a very powerful and a creative force. But when we are in situations of high stress or in a state of danger, then at that time, when we are in a state of emergency, that time when we let our minds wander, we feel a lot of fear and anxiety. So this is something to keep in mind. Now, the sixth and the most um, uh, relevant topic is, I would say, the rise of technology that is carefully designed to track and manipulate humans. So this is actually split into two chapters, and both those chapters will be very eye opening for somebody who is not coming from the tech space. Um, who's not who If you're not working in the tech industry, many of these things might come as a surprise to you or a shock to you. um, so here, so the author in each chapter, he first starts off with his experience of undergoing a digital detox. He goes into another place, where he experiences beautiful moments where he connects with nature, he lets his mind wander. He starts using a feature phone, I mean, the um, normal, non smartphone, and his experiences. So, those are like, very interesting aspects. It feels like, we are traveling with him, very well written. So, I have not covered those details. It's best if you read those from the book. So there he realizes that whenever we take up these digital detox times, um, once you come back to the actual world, you feel like you're again drawn back to all those distractions. So he says that digital detox is not really a long term solution, it is not sustainable, and it doesn't address the systemic issues that as a society we are grappling with. So here he interviews this person called Tristan Harris. He's a former Google engineer. If you have watched this Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, it's a must watch. Um, so you will hear Tristan's perspectives as well. So Tristan Harris, he starts off with his experiences in learning at the Stanford's Persuasive Technologies Lab. So there, his interactions with Instagram founders, those interactions and what are the sort of learnings that they underwent during that course is something that, as um, consumers of technology, all of us need to understand. So the primary learning from that course is that we need to build in immediate reinforcements in the app or in the technology that we design. If we want to shape the user's behavior, make sure that the user gets hearts and likes right away. Again, this connects back to that B.F. Skinner's pigeon experiment, right? And since I have been part of the software industry for many years, um, I have explored the works of the professor B.J. Fogg as part of his tenure at Persuasive Technologies Lab. So here, this formula is like, a mantra that is being used by many of the startup founders and product managers, especially those working in the consumer space. B equals MAT, which means that a behavior, if you want to change a behavior, three factors come into play. The first is motivation, M. The second is ability, whether the user will be able to do a certain activity, that stands for A. And the third is trigger, when you could trigger the user to perform that action at the right moment. So these three factors put together will influence a change in behavior. And this formula has, every social media platform you would see applications of this formula. So, whenever we look at metrics for a end user product, consumer product, the North Star metric that many of us you might have heard of is this user engagement. User engagement is the number of minutes or hours where the user spends on the product, right? So, in order to hit this metric, if this metric is like measured on a daily, weekly and monthly basis, and we want to like keep increasing this metric. So in order to do that, more gamification techniques are being employed, more notifications, more alerts, more temptations, right? So there are various um, tons and tons of ideas that are explored in order to increase this metric. So the author of this book, he says that it's not your fault you can't focus, it's by design. Your distraction is their fuel. um, so he says that we are living on a treadmill of continuous checking, right? He also talks about his interview with this person named Asa Raskin. He is the one who invented the infinite scroll. So infinite scroll main idea was to make it easy for people to use product where you can scroll without having to click on the pagination links that used to be there, um, many years back. So the fact that, as I realized, is that making something easy to use doesn't mean it's good for humanity. So yes, by infinite scroll we have improved or eased the user experience, but is it really good for humanity? It's something to think about. So the more people stare at their phones, the more money can be made, right? So this is the business model. This is the attention economy, as it is called. Um, and also, whenever there is interruptions, it deteriorates people's ability to focus and think clearly. We saw that in the first factor, right? So many times we think it is our own fault that we are not able to focus. We get interrupted and we feel, we self criticize, it is our fault that we are not able to focus. But the author says that it is how the system is being designed. So the question that many designers, product managers in technology startups ask is that how could we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible, right? There are various techniques that are being discussed, that are being brainstormed and used, that exploit the many vulnerabilities in human psychology. um, and many of these technologies, especially social media platforms, you might think that this is free, it is offered for free. But whenever something is offered for free, remember that it is you that is being sold, you and your data that is being sold to the advertisers. This comes under the terminology called surveillance capitalism, where the technology kind of tracks you online. Every single move, every single click, every single activity of yours is being tracked. It creates a personality of you, and it figures out your temptations, your weaknesses, your desires, and it sells this particular data to the advertisers, whoever is the highest bidder. And This is how our vulnerabilities are being misused. So the author says that um, the the technology is able to hack vulnerabilities which we don't even know are our vulnerabilities. So he says that this is actually anti-democratic and anti-human, this mode of surveillance capitalism. um, so the algorithms used across all these platforms, they actually decide what you should see and in which order you should see, which time you should see. So many variables and parameters that come into play that decide the feed, right, that you see on your social media. And if you see, because most of us, it is our inherent nature to be aware of what is the it's called as the negativity bias, because we want to be more alert to dangers that are around. So that is how evolution has programmed us. So there is a negativity bias, and this is being exploited to the maximum. You will see that there are lot many negative news and outrage content that comes into our feed than positive or empowering content. Um, so the author says that it has become, the feed, it turns our hate into a habit, it turns outrage into a routine, where once we start to see more and more of such content, we start to condemn more, but we actually understand less of what is happening. So he says there are 6 ways by which such invasive technology, it harms our attention. The first is that we discussed about the rewards. It has trained our minds to crave more and more immediate rewards. We are conditioned to keep needing these reinforcements over and over again. And in real world, you don't get such frequent rewards and frequent praises, and such immediate rewards. So because real world doesn't offer such rewards, we tend to live more and more in the digital world, and we are expecting for such constant reinforcements to come our way. The second is about switching. Because of technology, we are switching more frequently, and that impacts the quality of our thinking. uh, Such technologies knows what makes us tick, which means it knows our personal likes. It knows what will trigger us, what will excite us, what will distract us. Based on all this information, based on the behavioral profile that it creates, it is able to tune our behaviors based on our personal likes and dislikes. The fourth is something very subtle, but it is happening a lot these days, where we see that there is a lot of anger. Looking at the kind of negative content that comes our way. Whenever we are in a state of anger, it hampers our ability to pay attention, it decreases the depth of processing. Um, so, if we are angry all the time by looking at negative content, then it is very unlikely we'll be able to pay attention. The fifth one is not just our anger, we are also seeing the anger of other people. You just go into the comment section of any video on YouTube, you will see such negative content and negative comments, right? As we continuously expose ourselves to such negative content, it ends up making us more hyper vigilant. And finally, it impacts the society's collective attention. So many content that we see, it tends to radicalize people to either one extreme or the other, and also it biases our viewpoints, and because of which collective solution building isn't possible. So, taking into account all these factors, the author says that there is a collective downgrading of humans happening, and at the same time upgrading of machines happening. We are becoming less intelligent, less rational, and less focused. So, when you read this particular chapter, these two chapters, you will see a lot of your behaviors being captured, right? Unknowingly, which we might indulge in because of technology, but we might think it is our fault that we are not able to focus, we are like constantly distracted, but this is how the system is designed, this is how the technology companies business model is relying on. So this is this will definitely be an eye opener for people who are not coming from the tech industry.